Why does it sound horribly good if it's horrible? Why is it horrible?
Okay, we're recording now, sis. So it's time for us to be professional and not asking all of these existentially hard questions like what you just asked.
Why is it terribly horrible if it's horrible? Or
Well,
wonderfully
let's
horrible if
give
it's
the
horrible?
listeners some context here, right? So I
What's
was
horrible?
working on getting the recording software to work, and I have to go through these several checks.
Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2. 5, 7.
Yes, kind of
Talking,
like
talking,
that.
talking, 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 talking.
And so so in the doing of these checks, I have to check your
Check,
audio,
check,
and
check.
then and then I have to check my audio. So I have to check both of them. And
Audio,
then
audio, check,
but
check,
here's the thing, listeners, help me out here. Is that while I'm checking out
check.
my audio, you keep
Audio,
talking
audio, check,
and
check.
like this, like you're doing right now. And
What? I'm not doing
so
nothing. Talking,
and
talking, 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 talk.
and so anyway, it turns a short process into a longer process, albeit a fun one, I have to say. So I tried to tell sis to be quiet so I could
Talking,
test
talking,
my
talking,
and
talking, talking, talking.
you're now hearing what happened when I made that request. And I think this is an age-old thing, isn't it, sis? Doesn't this go back between us a long ways?
It probably as long as we can remember talking.
Yeah, I think our whole lives we have had a special place for each other in terms of obedience to the other's commands.
Or lack thereof.
Yeah, complete lack thereof.
I completely listen to everything that you tell me to do.
Yeah, you listen, but then you don't obey.
Well, because obeying is not part of listening.
Well, that's true. It's separate from listening.
And you
But
never ever say it. You say, listen to me. You don't say obey me. And then when you do say obey me, I'm all like, mm-hmm.
you still don't obey me.
Yeah, pretty much.
And this goes back 40 years, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, for sure.
40 years, and probably I think probably a lot of it started I know it's famous for in the culture for kids to be in the back seat arguing while mom is driving, and then mom turns around and says something. And
And you made me
did we do
believe
that to our
that
mother?
because there was a no passing zone on the road, that when I played the passing zone on the game in that was holding in my hand, that's why I lost.
Oh yeah,
I'm just saying.
you have to explain that to the listeners, or should I?
You should.
Okay. So this was what, the 1980s, early 1980s, and there were these handheld um, digital football game um, players that were they had little blinking LED lights, and they were very primitive uh, compared to today's games, but they were a ton of fun. And I would joke there was this mode that this handheld football player game would have to go in where you could either run as the running back and try to gain yardage and have blockers to help you, or you could pass and your receiver would try to catch the ball. And so um, you did pretty well with the running uh, part of the plays, but when you went into passing mode, you really had a lot of difficulties. And I think I jerked your chain one day because it just so happened that I saw as you flipped the handheld game into passing mode that we were coming up on a road sign that said no passing allowed. And it was, of course, for the road. But I pointed it out to you, and you saw the sign that said no passing allowed. And being little miss disobedient, you of course put it into passing mode. And what happened?
Epic fail.
Yeah, you did the pass, and I think did I intercept? Is that what
I was
happened?
gonna say you intercepted it.
Yeah, I intercepted, and then, of course, I did the wise and mature big brother gloating over the little sister getting in trouble thing, didn't I?
Na 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 kind of move. Oh yeah.
Yeah, I completely gloated over the fact that you lost possession of the ball and you hadn't listened to me and obeyed me. So that was
That
wow,
was my
that was
payback.
almost 40 years ago, I would say, right?
Uh, maybe a little less. Yeah. Maybe
I'm
35.
I
Well,
probably
maybe
shouldn't have said that. I apologize. I wasn't thinking when I said that, but it was a long time ago, and
it's
um,
over. You can say it's over 40 years ago. I'm not ashamed of my age by any means.
okay. But so ever since then, and even before that, you had problems obeying my commands, and it was very um,
Frustrating
wear
to you?
wearing upon me.
I
I
don't
mean, I
know
would give you
why you would think
perfectly
that.
good commands, and you just would not obey.
Oh, oh, that's just
So
a darn shame. Let me just say. Oh,
I I can see here now that even after all these years, the same spirit is probably still there. But I was gonna say, instead of, in our culture, it's a very famous kind of meme to have kids arguing in the back of the car, and then mother turns around while she's driving and yells at them, and that probably happened with us too. But I was gonna say, we probably had our most of our interactions walking up and down the driveway at the farm we grew up on.
yep.
That's probably where that might be where we spent the most time with each other growing up. Is that right, would you say?
I would have to agree.
And so for our listeners, this was how long would you say? A third of a mile, half of a mile long
That's-
driveway?
I think it's actually probably between the third and a half. It not
Okay.
quite a half a mile, but it was definitely a little bit longer than a third of a mile.
Yeah,
And
and it would take us 5 minutes easy, but not 10 maybe, right?
yeah, if you ran down the driveway, you could get down it in like 2 or 3. No,
Right.
maybe like 3 or 4, even if you ran down the driveway.
Right. So, okay,
Not
here
that I
we
had to
are.
do that a couple of times to catch the bus.
Yep, and so we would have to catch the school bus, and I think in the springtime and in the summer, it was very pleasant, but it sure was cold in the wintertime, wasn't it?
Oh, yes.
And, um, we had trouble because, of course, we didn't know when the bus was gonna come. I mean, we had the set time it was supposed to come, but that was no guarantee that it would actually be on schedule.
Exactly.
So um, we had to sort of time it just right. If um, we were out in the cold wind, that driveway was next to open fields, and so the cold wintry mix would blow on us in the wintertime very hard, making for a very uncomfortable waiting for the bus situation. And so we would try to time it by staying as close to the house as possible and out of the direct wind, but you really couldn't do that and then make it down if the bus was already coming and you weren't on top of that.
Right.